In this video, we're going to talk about our association's Kata tournament ceremony. A Kata tournament is an event where students will come up individually to perform either pinans or kata or some other form, and then a group of judges will judge them fairly and accurately on that performance. In our association, we use between 3 and 5 judges, as well as a scorekeeper. The scorekeeper's job is the management of the ring. They are responsible for recording each of the students' names who will be competing in that ring, as well as writing the judges' scores down next to their names when they are called. The scorekeeper will then go off to the side and add those scores up to get each competitor's total score. The scorekeeper is also responsible for calling the students up when it is their turn to perform. So each student will be called aloud, first and last name, to come up and compete. And then the next student to perform will be called by the scorekeeper as on deck, meaning that they will be performing next. At the end of each student's performance, after they center up, the chief simbon will ask the judges to do a judge's score. In our system, we use a score between 1 and 10, but most of the scores for a student's performance will fall between the ranges of 5 and 8 to 8.5. We use 2 scorecards. We have the whole number scorecard, which is held in the judge's right hand, and we also use a decimal system in order to get a larger variety of scores, ensure there are no ties, and get a more accurate assessment of the competitor's score. So you will see once judge's score is called, that each judge will hold their scorecards up so that the scorekeeper can see it. Similar this way. When the scorekeeper calls out that they've seen the judge's score, 6.4, the judge may then place their scorecards down, and the scorekeeper goes to the next judge's score until all judges have been recorded. So that the students may see how the ceremony itself is conducted, I will now demonstrate an example of how the Kata tournament ceremony looks. Each student may end up using a different thing that they're going to perform, kata, pinan, or other. Okay, so this will be a nice example of how the ceremony looks so that they can use this to practice at home. So, we will first say that each division of students will be broken up into rings. The ring is an imaginary square that's made up of enough space that the judges may be seated comfortably inside the ring, and that the competitors have enough space to perform their pinan or kata properly. For this demonstration, we will assume that the students or competitors are seated this way towards the back, all behind the imaginary line that starts the ring, and the judges would be seated over this way, facing this direction, and would then be off camera. So for right now, I'm going to come down to the outside edge of the ring where the students would be seated, and I will have a seat here as if I was competing with other members of my peers sitting next to me. When I hear my name called, I will stand up in my spot. Depending on where that spot is, I then need to come to the center of the ring. So I will come around the front of my classmates, and I will come to the center of the ring, on the outer edge of the ring, and then I will turn to face the center judge that's on the other side of the ring. At this point, we will begin the actual ceremony itself. So, I will start by bowing into the ring. Then, I will come up a few steps, just a nice little quick walk or jog up, to stand directly in front of the judges, just a couple of feet away. I will then perform a first bow to the judges. Then I will state 3 things. My first and last name, the style of karate that I will be performing, and what I will be performing, whether it be pinan, kata, or other. Once I state those 3 things, I will then do a second bow to the judges. I will take a few steps back so that I may start the performance. Depending on what I'm doing, I may take more steps back or less. So for instance, if I was doing pinan or seisan kata or wansu kata, something like that, I may take a few steps back so that I'm centered in the ring between the edge of the ring and the judges. If I was doing something like Nahachi Kata, which is more side to side, I may not have to move back as much, as I won't be going forward towards the judges. I will simply be going to the sides. If I'm doing a longer kata that goes to the front, such as Seiyuchin or Sun Tzu, I may take an extra step or two back so that I make sure I have enough space as I'm going forward not to come too close to the judges. Once you center yourself up, you will then perform your kata. You will bow, and then if you're doing pinan or pivot kick routine, you'll come right to ready position. If you are doing a kata, you will bow, and then you will do a set, and then you'll go into your kata. So for instance, if I was doing Seisan Kata, I would come into ready position, and then I would start my kata this way. Once I got towards the end of my kata, and I completed the kata, I would then wait, and the chief simbon will most likely say thank you, center up, and I will fix to make sure I'm in my starting spot. And then I will wait. The chief simbon will then wait for all the judges to get their cards to the correct score that they would like to give that kata for that performance. And then the chief simbon will say judges score, at which point all of the judges will hold their cards up at the same time as I demonstrated earlier. The scorekeeper will then write those scores next to my name and then go off to the side so that he can add them together and come up with my total score. At that point, the chief simbon will say, thank you, please sit. And at this point, I may do an optional bow. I like to do this bow, saying thank you to the judges for watching my performance, but this particular bow is optional. So, thank you. Now I will exit the ring. When I exit the ring, I want to make sure that I don't turn and turn my back to the judges as I exit the ring, as that's considered disrespectful. So I'm going to just take a quick look over my shoulder to see where I'm going. Then I'm going to back up this way, find the edge of the ring, bow out of the ring. And then once I'm out of the ring, then I can turn and I'll sit back down with the rest of my peers, and then the next person will be called up to perform. So now that we've broken down all of the elements of the beginning and ending ceremony, I will now do an actual demonstration of an example ceremony using my name, Ishinu Karate, and that will be the style that the students will be saying at most of our empty hand tournaments. We Ishinu Karate. The only time that changes within our association is when the black belts get to weapons kata. Okay, so for us, for the basic Ishinu Kata, the style will be Ishinu Karate. And then finally, we will say the name of the kata, and for this instance, I will use Seisan Kata. When you do tournament kata in our association, you may do it one of two ways. You may either say the name as Seisan Kata, or you may say kata, slight pause, and then the name of the kata, such as kata Seisan. If you're doing pivot kick routine or pinan 1 and 2, those you can just say that way, pivot kick routine or pinan 1 and 2. Okay? So, I'm going to back up out of the ring, okay, and sit right where I was before. I hear my name called. I stand up in my spot. Daniel Hopler, Ishinu Karate, Kata, Seisan. At this point, I'm going to skip the actual kata itself to the end. I'll wait for my scores to be read, and then once the scorekeeper has the scores and the chief simbon says please sit, I Thank you. And that's the entire ceremony. If you would like to practice the pinans or katas themselves, the one that you would be performing in the tournament, we do have other videos on this channel that you can watch the entire kata performance and start to go along. But if you needed a little demonstration on what you're going to do or what you're going to say, then that should be helpful for you. Okay? So again, a little respect to the ring. Okay? Stay seated out to where you're seated with your fellow competitors. When you hear your name called, come to the center of the ring, bow into the ring, come up a few steps up towards the judges, leave a couple of feet if you can. Then second bow, bow to the judges, say your full first and last name, Ishinu Karate, and what you'll be performing. Then bow to the judges again, now that is your third bow. Okay? And then before any performance, even if it's pinan or if it's pivot kick routine or something else that you're performing, still bow before and after that performance, even if those bows aren't normally part of that. And of course, if you're doing kata, you'll bow at the beginning and ending of the kata. Okay, so that will be your fourth and fifth bows. Then you have your optional bow to the judges to say thank you after they give you your scores and tell you to sit. And then your seventh bow is the bow out of the ring. If you do hear yourself called on deck at a tournament, that means you will be going next. So you may find a quiet place to the side of the back behind your competitors of your ring. Not in your ring, but behind your ring, to stretch out, practice a little bit, be prepared for you to come up next. Just make sure you don't enter into any other rings and that you keep it quiet so that we can be respectful to the competitors who are performing at that moment. I think if we can get some practice on this, then all of our kata tournaments, we can have an excellent time at them. Okay? If you have any questions on any of this, please feel free to contact me directly. Thank you.